This video marks the start of a new unit on radicals. Radicals are the most common place we've seen them is with square roots, which we've done extensively this year, being problems like this. And when you see a square root, you can pretty much do these by looking at them by now. But what you're really doing is you're asking yourself, what number squared gets me the thing under the roots? So what number squared gets me 9? The answer to this is 3, because 3 squared is 9. The square root of 64 is 8, because 8 squared gets me 64. So when we do roots so far, we've always been saying, well, what number squared gets me where I want to be? Sometimes, though, you could be dealing with other types of roots. We're talking about what number cubed gets you a certain answer, what number to the 4th power or to the 5th power, or so on. So we need a new symbol for that. The way that we will express this, just kind of drawing a bigger picture here, give myself some room to write. You will look at something like that. So it looks like a regular root like normal, but there's a little number that's going to be over here kind of next to the root that will indicate what power we're looking at. I got a couple of vocab words on this, and then I'll show you through example what's going on. First of all, the symbol itself, kids get in the habit of calling this a square root sign. It's not a square root sign if we have a different power that we're looking at. So in general, just the word for that is it's called a radical sign. So a radical sign, or sometimes I'll call it just the root. The inside, the number that we're actually taking the root of, is called the radicands. So the number that we're taking the root of. And this little number over here that indicates what power we're working with is called the index. So when we're dealing with regular square roots, like what you see right here, we're saying what number squared gets me this. The index on these roots is really 2. It's like there's a little 2 here saying, hey, we're looking at numbers squared. But since we use square roots so much more than all the others, we don't even bother to write the symbol there. So if you just see a regular root symbol, you can assume the index is 2. Let's look at a few examples, though, where the index is not 2. So all we're doing in this video is just evaluating these. So we're going to say what each of our problems here are equal to. The first one is asking for the cube root of 64. That's what this index tells us right here. So what number to the 3rd power gets us 64? Instead of squaring something, we want to multiply it 3 times now. So you can just kind of play around with different numbers and try things out. But it turns out that if you do 4 to the 3rd power, 4 to the 3rd power equals 64. That means the cube root of 64 equals 4. You can also do this problem just straight up on your calculator. If you're on the calculator here, instead of going to the regular square root key, under the math menu, which is going to be our key right there, the 4th choice down is a cube root option. So I can just do cube root, I can punch in my number, and you can see that indeed the cube root of 64 is equal to 4. My next problem is the 4th root of 16. That says what number to the 4th power gets me 16? Well, the answer to that is 2, because if you do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, you get 16. So 2 to the 4th equals 16. And to test this one, all I'm going to do here is in the math menu, you can just choose, we did the cube root option before, which was this choice right here. We can just choose the next one down with a little X there, and then just delete whatever's in the thing and just put your own index. So I want to put an index of 4. Oops, this one is going to be the 16 there, and you can see that when I do that, it does equal 2. So you just kind of edit the index to what you want. My next problem here, you see that negative under the radical, and your first instinct should be to say, ooh, that's not good. I can't do that, because that's what always happened with square roots. But as it turns out, this problem is totally fine. The cube root of negative 125 is negative 5, because if you do negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5, you get negative 125. So when your index is odd like this, it's okay. You can have a negative there on the inside, because it's just going to mean your answer is negative, and it works out. On our next problem, though, we have the 4th root of negative 81, and this one's bad news, because if you multiply 3 4 times, you get 81. If you multiply negative 3 4 times, your negatives cancel, you still get a positive 81. So this negative is a problem for us here. This has no real solution. What you guys should already realize, just from our previous chapter on quadratics, is that it means this answer is going to be imaginary. So, when the radicands is negative and the index is even, you will have an imaginary solutions. Oops, going off the screen a little bit there, sorry. You'll have imaginary solutions, or imaginary roots. So, odd index, like right here, no big deal. Even index, then if you have a negative, you're going to have those imaginary answers.